Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, we'll be talking about a pretty significant storm system that could be occurring across the upper Midwest as it tracks through southeastern Canada and into the northeastern United States. As it gets to the coast, the eastern coast of the United States, it will begin developing a very long and large cold front on its kind of back end that could that could bring quite a bit of rain to those locations that have already been flooded with a lot of rain from obviously remnants of Ida, but also just bringing rain to locations that need it. So it's kind of a good and a bad story at the same time. All right, before we get into this, if you guys have watched a couple of videos, you like this channel, consider subscribing, consider supporting it. Obviously, don't subscribe just because I told you so. Consider clicking the thumbs up button if you enjoy the videos, and if you have any comments or concerns, I encourage you to leave them down below. Okay, let's start off with the GFS model. So, first off, the newest GFS model run isn't loaded in fully, so let me just go back to the first one, and I'm using this one that's fully loaded to kind of demonstrate the pattern and what we will be looking at aside just from this large system that I'm kind of going to be basing the title off of. So notice, it's going to be a parade of storm systems, really quite a bit of them. Notice we have going on one right now across the, it's centered with the circulation across southern Canada, but it stretches its cold front way into the southern United States. Look at that, I mean, that's almost 1,000 miles. And it drives off the coast, brings a bit of rain, some showers, and yeah, that's basically what happens with that one. Nothing too significant. Obviously, some rain will be falling, and there will be a bit of cool air behind it on the backside of this. As we push towards Monday and into Tuesday, notice we see another area of showers starting to develop across northern Minnesota. This continues to track through all the Great Lakes. Really, all 5 of them get in on that. And notice that it does develop this cold front. Definitely some potential for severe weather across right there into Michigan and potentially southern Canada. Not a massive threat, but damaging winds, hail for sure, definitely a threat with those storms. And this is at this point late Tuesday into early morning Wednesday. And notice that it doesn't really continue intensifying the system. However, what it does do is become very broad. And once it does that, it has a lot of circulation power, and what it does with the help of this high pressure that's spinning the opposite direction, clockwise, it funnels in a bit of chilly air, which will be nice for many folks across the Midwest and kind of the East. Notice, as I was talking about, it will be developing this cold front with the help of a tropical moisture, maybe a tropical system, maybe a tropical storm across the south. Notice quite a bit of showers, storms. Shouldn't cause massive flooding, however, by itself, but with the rain that has already fallen across the Northeast, it won't take much to cause the overly saturated soils to pond and start flooding. I don't think it should be widespread, but unfortunately, if you get under 1 or 2 thunderstorms, where in the New York metro even, right, where there's been almost 9 inches of rain, it definitely could be more prone to flooding. So again, by itself, this system wouldn't be anything of concern in terms of flooding for the majority of the Northeast. However, again, based on the historic floods that they had last week, they're in a higher risk area for that. And I do want to say this cold front will be kind of hanging around for a while. You could see Wednesday it starts affecting the Northeast, the coastal areas already, late Wednesday towards afternoon hours. But through all of Thursday, it's kind of hanging around and really just drags off by the time it's late Thursday into Friday. And then it's still affecting portions of the Southeast, but at least not the Northeast. I do want to say that while this may be bad that there's a cold front and a large system developing for those folks that have seen that saw that rain, and also the threat of severe weather always viewed negatively, which makes sense. But one positive kind of silver lining of this is notice that we do have a very strong hurricane out in the Atlantic, and it is going to be a major one. The National Hurricane Center thinks it will be, but it doesn't get close to the shore. Now, the reason, I don't know how close it would be to the shore without this cold front. You could see that this system has a strong cold front, and as soon as they kind of start interacting, this system just gets blown right off, and it doesn't even hesitate about hitting the coast. Now, I don't know if it would directly. I would assume that, if it were to just have no competition over here, absolutely no cold front, whatever, and it would just kind of steer to the north, maybe, there wouldn't really be anything to propel it to the north and west, but it could definitely still bring a lot of moisture into the Northeast if it were just to, even be relatively close. But yes, with this cold front, it doesn't even really come close to the northeast. So that's you could say that's a kind of a saving grace. And that's our system, right? This is the one ongoing right now. It's much weaker. Here's our second one. Again, there will be showers, really just moderate light showers for much of Canada. So probably cloudy, dreary forecast for the few days that this does stick around. But again, there will be relatively chilly temperatures with this. I wouldn't say cold, but definitely chilly, and that is gonna be nice for many folks that have been dealing with heat, or anyone that just, sorry about that, wants relief. And notice that this is during the day, and that is very pleasant. Look at the south. I mean, the southeast, 70s, 80s. That's definitely not bad, and especially as you go towards the north, 70s. That's perfect. It is unfortunately a bit hot as you go towards the northwest and central United States, so it's not cool off. It's not a cool off for everyone, unfortunately. I do want to say that even once that system passes, look, there's another one. This one doesn't really develop into a storm per se, but it does bring some showers, activity, and this is just one model run interpretation of this. It could definitely serve as a catalyst kind of for others, for any remaining moisture, any changes in the atmosphere to develop this into a stronger system. We'll have to see whether or not that happens. And once that happens, the pattern kind of breaks and we enter a different phase, which is interesting. Some models like the GFS show a bit of a drier period with some enhanced tropical activity across the Gulf. And they also bring in a bit of chilly air, which could result in the first snow for some folks across southern Canada, maybe the northern United States. The GFS model has been doing this for several model runs. This was the one in the morning. You could see the snow was there, just further to the north. The one at midnight yesterday brought snow showers, but more towards southeastern Canada. Definitely, the first big snowstorm kind of in this view that we have of the southern kind of third of Canada. Yesterday in the afternoon, it also indicated a snow system, but further across, really Manitoba. And Saskatchewan. So again, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But I do want to say that again, the main focus is this system for today's video. Before we go into that system with other models, I do want to also say that the Southwest will be getting some moisture, and that has been rather consistent with some of the models. So GFS being one of them. Notice, look at all this precipitation that starts floating around by Friday. This is again out ahead of really a tropical storm way further to the south, and probably a hurricane. And this does stick around for a few days, and different models have different interpretation of this. But as I'll show you the other models, I do want to, for you to pay attention to this, that look, there's a lot of moisture here, and the 12Z GFS model run doesn't bring this storm up to the southwest, but the newest one does. So that's already something new. But again, that rain's already not going to break the drought, but it's going to prevent things from getting worse, at least during that week, right? Which it seems like it's been getting worse week by week, so at least that's good. And even outside of that, you can see the more showers potentially, nothing extraordinary, but it's there. There's a bit of that green color, and I do want to say that for the northwest, it also looks a bit more promising towards the long range. Okay, so I was talking about this newer model one. Let's take a glance at it because it's at this point loaded in quite a bit. So here's our first storm, again, slides off. Here's our second one, very similar, right? You can see that severe weather threat definitely being there, especially into that late Tuesday, early Wednesday time frame. There's our cold front, just hit, kind of stings around with the northeast for a few days, but really just 1.5 days. That hurricane does, I think it's a layer, that's its name, I'm not sure. It gets driven off, not even close, but look what happens right there. Look at that moisture. Again, the GFS model run prior did this as well, but the newest one emphasizes even more rain. And look at that, tropical storm, probably a hurricane, right, at some point, definitely reaching the U.S. as a remnant just with moisture, but that is definitely some decent rain for the southwest. Now, obviously, what else catches your eyes is this storm right here across the Gulf. And you can see, if you recall, the GFS last time did also show one at this time. I meant to say that the prior GFS model run showed this as well. And again, it does only go up to 280 hours, but what we do see is a little bit more moisture for the west and northwest maybe, and a combination of a bit of cold air, some precip. Again, it's interesting to see what it'll show in the last kind of 80 hours of this forecast, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, you can see it's a bit different of a pattern versus the one that's just going to be these little storm systems again. There's our second one, and there's potentially a third one that the GFS develops. And this third one does develop, but it's really further to the north, and it's a bit later, meaning it's a bit closer to the east rather than the central kind of part, and that's why its cold front just kind of affects the U.S. But again, that's far out, and it changes based on every model run. But there is a consensus that around the 240-hour range, where the medium meets the long range period, meteorologically, right, we do see a pattern change. Whether or not that will result in a drier period, a colder period, a warmer period, a more period of more tropical activity, we'll have to see, but definitely it's going to result in some sort of a change. Let's take a look at the Canadian. This model only goes out to 240, so it really doesn't show that pattern change, just really what's the current pattern going to look like, but it's important, right? And notice that there's our first system circulating, bringing showers, storm. That could bring some rain into the northeast alone, but then you can see by Tuesday, Wednesday, it does bring that severe weather threat a bit further towards the south into Illinois this time. And again, it does become broad and have a bit of chilly air behind it. It does bring in a bit of rain for the northeast, combines it with a little hurricane, or I should say tropical storm at the tail end of its cold front, but that does thankfully sweep that system off. But what it does do with this, it intensifies it, and look, at around 1 hour 150, the Canadian brings that tropical storm awfully close to the northeast and affects it with some moisture. Not the best of the news, so we'll have to watch for that. Hopefully that doesn't end up occurring. The good news is that kind of will result in some chillier air, which I guess a lot of folks could look for if they're stuck in the heat. But again, most likely wouldn't outweigh the cost of that if that were to occur. And again, it doesn't even have to be strong. Just additional rain at this point for the northeast wouldn't be desirable for an extended period of time. Again, look at the Canadian. The GFS showed precip around 150-hour time. Look what this one does. Quite a bit. Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and you can see that the pattern does change. We see more of these systems kind of flowing way further to the north, more flow from the tropical, kind of the Gulf. You can see this one brings more into, it doesn't really produce a storm, but more moisture into Mexico and Texas. So we'll have to see, but all models show a pattern change after that time period. But again, I guess this video's title is talking about this system, which the Canadian does show and brings into a very similar orientation. In terms of precipitation, I might as well look at it since I've been talking about it, right? Okay, so notice this is up to hour 160. Let's just stop it right here. Obviously, if this system were to form at the tail end of that bigger one, this tropical system, that would be bad. But excluding that, you could still see up to a half an inch, maybe an inch of rain is still possible for the northeast, the Great Lakes, southeastern Canada, and potentially, some rain for the southwest, which is very good news. But you could see a lot of the portions, there will be many portions in the U.S. that stay dry, that need it, especially across the Dakotas. Thankfully, they have gotten some relief, but again, not enough to bust it out of the drought. But yeah, look at that. Ontario, especially eastern Ontario, getting in on some of that heavy rain. GFS up until that same time period, quite some similarities. Notice it doesn't take that tail end tropical storm and lead it up the coast. Swoops it off, so that would be good news. Still some rain expected from that storm. And the southwest expects to get a bit more rain, according to the GFS, and if you're to put it out into the 312-hour, even more gets added. So that is most definitely something that is a good omen. But look at that, that's bad right there. More rain for Louisiana if that tropical storm were to occur, which the GFS showed. Very far out, but it shows it nonetheless. Let's take a look at the European. A very, very good model. Again, only goes out to 240, so won't really show that pattern change that the GFS shows, but it will show us that storm system. Notice there's our cold front from the first one, very weak, really no precip from that. That should be significant. Hopefully it isn't, because again, it does show that second one, brings in some severe weather, line of storms, brings it into the northeast. Hopefully nothing too significant, but definitely a threat for that. And with that tropical storm, with the Canadian and GFS, brought it up the coast. The European lingers it around the south and attaches it to another system which develops much differently across the northern U.S. and southern Canada than the GFS and Canadian did. If you recall, the Canadian developed the system way up into Quebec, and the GFS just showed an area of weak precipitation regarding that system. Let's go to the newest model run and click at hour 150. I'm doing this just to show you the difference. This is what the GFS showed right there. You can see its weak cold front. Canadian did a very, very similar thing, and the European brings it way further to the south, bringing kind of a third system, taking a very similar track. That would bring some rain probably for southern Canada, the Great Lakes. That system across the Gulf just sits there, really doesn't do anything. The European isn't excited to bring it off the coast. kind of keeps it around the southeast. Probably not the best news for the folks across the south. They could get a bit of too much rain out of that, especially where they just had the rain from Ida. And yeah, definitely something that is a bit of a concern, to say the least. But you can see that there's many interpretations of this model, or sorry, of this forecast. And you can see the European is not as excited about the southwest moisture. So I would say from the all three models that are I showed you, GFS, Canadian, European, this one's the most different. And usually the European is the most accurate, so that kind of screws it up because, the confidence is much lower than, there are a few areas where it does agree on, right? And notice that it does bring some activity across the southern U.S. Not maybe a hurricane, but it's tropical depression system, the moisture definitely across the southeast, the Gulf. A lot of rain for southern Canada, especially eastern Ontario, which the GFS and Canadian agreed on, into southern Canada as well. It did show those few storm systems. It disagreed on the last one, but notice it doesn't bring much into the northeast, which the Canadian did bring a bit more. The European does bring in a bit less, so that's good news. And hopefully it keeps it that way. But yeah, the biggest difference is really just how it treats that last third storm system across the southern Canada area. The GFS Canadian take it way further to the north, around an hour of 150. And the European doesn't show any moisture here. It does show a bit, right? Nothing's compared to what let me just show you what the Canadian showed, which already is a lot more, and especially the GFS, which was substantially more amounts of moisture, and especially with the new model run, it brings in a lot more, the GFS. So maybe the European will start showing that in its new model runs, but for now it doesn't do that. So yeah, that's basically it. That's basically all I wanted to show you. I can't really show you any of the high res. Well, they do start showing the system up to 84 hours it goes only, so it won't be showing what it does across the northeast or what it does with the tropical storm at its tail end of its cold front. But notice it does develop it across very similar locations. Some severe weather definitely developing as it races through Erie, Ontario, meaning Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, into New York. And there would be our tropical storm system, which NAM isn't too excited about developing. FE3 high res, it only goes out to 60 hours. So yeah, it doesn't even show the start of that system across the northern part of the country, so it's kind of useless to look at this model. RGEM, the high-res version of a Canadian, it goes out to 84, so it does show that system, again, with similar characteristics. Brings in that cold front a bit further towards the south into Illinois versus the GFS that doesn't really do that. So again, some changes, but really more similarities than differences. And yeah, you can see that's how far it goes out. And again, even during this time frame, not its full lifespan, it does bring in some decent rain amounts. And I do want to add that there will be some chilly air following that system that will be affecting a broader area than just the precipitation side of that storm. Since we are already towards the end of this GFS model run, I just want to show you, I'm looking at this for the first time myself because this is the newer model run and I want to see what it does. Look at that. It brings in a lot of moisture from that hurricane, which develops and takes a sweet old time across the south according to this model run. Brings in some moisture, some storms. It doesn't really show a snowstorm, which the GFS has been doing for the past several models, somewhere across southern Canada or extreme northern United States. Maybe it would do that in the last 40 hours. And again, it did show that in the previous model run. In the last few hours of its range, you can see look how widespread that system is. That's impressive. Classic kind of fall storm, very, very widespread. Some cold air, and look, boom, there would be a potential snowy side to that. The 6 o'clock did a similar thing. The midnight one yesterday in the afternoon, 24 hours ago, a bit less than 24 hours ago, I should say, showed a similar threat. You can see right there. That's already one that kind of brings in some snow, very far to the north, but nonetheless, it's there. And yeah, look at that one right there. That was yesterday, 18Z. Look at that. That was powerful system. It's snowstorm, right? And the latest one doesn't really show much for now, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you have a good look at what's to come for your area in terms of precip, in terms of rainfall, in terms of temperatures. Again, warmer towards the west and southwestern Canada, cooler towards the Midwest. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya.